Hello.
Hi, Tara. It's Barry.
Hi, how are you?
Well, better now. Uh, that was very lame on my part. I apologize.
That's okay. Not a
Okay.
problem at all. I have
Okay.
plenty of time.
Good. So, hi. Nice to meet you. Thank you
Nice to
for.
meet you too. Yeah, thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh, absolutely. This is my first time anybody's ever asked to interview me about anything for anything. So,
Oh,
I appreciate that.
very exciting.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I was really interested when I discovered your website, Divorced Over
Oh,
50,
uh,
because as I'm sure you know, divorce over 50 is like all the rage right now.
exactly.
Gray
Just
divorce is like the in thing to
right,
do.
right, right.
So can you talk a little bit about that, about your experience and why you started the website?
Sure. Well, I went through one and I began to read about it and see that it is this booming thing. I mean, the last thing I ever thought of myself was trendy, but uh, but it turns out that I actually was. And it just seemed like there might be a market for this, and it might be something that I could do, that I could tap into. And so the idea all along was to do a site that aggregates articles from other people in a variety of categories, and then write some of my own, some original stuff of my own. And so it's been a slow. It's it's moving along. I know there's a huge market out there. I'm looking to tap into more of it and then develop some offshoots that could keep this thing going and make it more viable.
There absolutely is a huge market for it. How was your experience being divorced over 50? I know it wasn't anything that you planned to do, but how'd it go?
Exactly. Well, that sort of helped me develop the whole philosophy that I have on the site. That it wasn't the plan. It was hard. I never saw myself as a divorced person. My parents have been married 62. It'll be 63 years in August. We have a very close family. Just really, really fortunate. And this was really blowing up. This was a sort of unheard of in our family, and so it was difficult in that regard. But I really wasn't happy. I will say that my ex-wife drove the process. Um, my thinking was I wanted to get our younger son out of the house, get him off to college, and then I thought we would say, okay, this isn't good. What do we want to do? And she kind of moved the timetable up on me. She announced that she wasn't happy and wanted out, and but that was okay. And so it was hard. Um, I thought, and this is something I learned. Intellectually, I was fine with it. I knew that I was better off. I knew that there was a better future out there for me, but it really hurt. It was a really difficult thing. And I've come to learn that you go through this mourning process, even if you want it or if you accept it, and even if you know that you're going to be better off, it's the death of your plan. This was not what you saw life going like. And so I went through that, but I certainly came to find in my own situation that I was much better off, and I hope she is as well. Um, I have nothing. There's no reason for me not to want her to be happy too, but I know that I'm better off, and so again, still some tough. I've got my that younger son graduates from college this weekend, and so this will be a difficult. It won't be difficult, but it's not the way it was supposed to go. This was not for me to be there by myself, for her to be there with her new husband. It's not it wasn't the plan, and it's a little. These kinds of things will continue to happen.
Mhm.
Hopefully, the kids will get married. Hopefully, the kids will have kids. Those kinds of things it'll be a different situation than it was supposed to be, but still overall, these are little sticking points, but overall, it's better for me.
That's wonderful.
Okay.
Um, I, I always say that divorce is really, it's a solution to a problem, and
Hmm.
it's about evolution, not dissolution, and it's a new beginning.
Okay, I like all that.
And really it's an adjustment, and like you said, you do go through that mourning process, you go through the
Right.
stages of grief, and it doesn't matter if you lose a family member or if you lose a pet or if you lose
Yeah.
your job or your
Uh-huh.
marriage. it's
Right.
it's the
Yeah.
same, it's that same
Right.
process, But ultimately, I think that, especially where you know that it's coming for a long
Yeah,
time and you
yeah,
kind of have that. I know a lot of people have that idea that, they
right,
want to wait until the kids are out of the house or,
right.
um, have you
Yeah,
ever heard that joke? It's a cartoon or something I think that I saw somewhere where it's a 90-year-old couple in front of a judge and the judge says, "Why did you want to do this now? Why
right.
now are you getting divorced?" And they said, "We wanted to wait till the kids are dead."
Yeah, I think I have seen it. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Um, I think there's another, maybe you've seen on my site, there's another offshoot that I've developed, Divorce Curious.
Yes.
And I call it, I'm going to claim credit for coining the term. I never saw anywhere else, Die Curious.
Mhm.
Um, because I really think there are a lot of people out there that are in less than ideal situations and just don't know what to do. And if you are in a position to make the choice, you have to weigh all the factors and then do the best you can. Kind of try to project yourself into the situation. So I'm also trying to reach out to people in that situation. And it's not. I mean, nobody's going to come to a seminar, in person. Are you divorce curious? But they could. But the internet does lend itself exactly to that. And so I'm going to look into that area, or that's an area that I'm looking to push into even more so.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the problems in our culture is that we don't want to talk about divorce.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the fact that we don't talk about it really just perpetuates the angry animosity, adversarial process that goes
Right.
into divorce because nobody wants to talk about it. Everybody who goes through the process thinks that they're doing something terrible.
Right.
And I think we really need to just, move past that.
Right. I think that the big part of this gray divorce, or divorce over 50, as I call it, is that you just reach a point where you've lived that phase of your life. You can say the marriage doesn't have to have been terrible. It's just that at this point, having done what we've done, now we're here, and I just want to do something different in the next 20 to 30 years that I may have. Um, so it certainly can be amicable. I haven't seen that all the time, but that can be the point of view, that it's sort of a natural evolution. One of the things I came across in researching this and reading about it is, I guess, when marriage as an institution developed in our society, average lifespan was more like 40 to 50 years. And now at this point, you're looking at maybe 20 or 30 more maybe good, healthy years beyond that. And it just so does the old fashioned way of doing things. It doesn't fit anymore. It used to be you raised your kids, got them out, and then you died. Now,
Right.
now you have multiple decades and potentially even good health and plenty of things to enjoy. So,
It's so true. And people change so much.
right.
And a lot of times people get married and they want to have a family. And
Yeah,
they have the family and the,
right.
the kids grow up and they move away and
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
now what, right?
Now, exactly.
But we really change a lot as individuals, and even looking at the average number of careers that people have now.
Right,
That's
right.
another thing where it used to be you went to work for the
I
same
think you're
company and you
absolutely
worked
right.
there for 40 years and then you
Right.
retired.
Yeah,
And people don't do that anymore. We
right.
grow, we change, our
All
jobs are
the,
being outsourced and our
yep,
industries are dying and
right.
so there's
Yep.
just so much change, so much evolution that takes place, and so it's natural that as people change, their home life and their marriage is going to change as well. So I certainly understand that, and
Uh-huh.
obviously I love divorce, so
Yeah,
I
well,
don't subscribe to
that was
that.
what was so interesting to me about what you wrote. As you saw how I handled or how I introduced your
Hmm.
piece, that okay, we've said it could be a positive. It's not ideal. It could be a positive. It's sort of the philosophy that I've developed and what I put out on my site. And you took it a whole step further. As you saw, I said, but maybe she's got a point. Maybe this is the way to look at it. So, uh,
It's certainly not anything. A lot of people think that I'm anti-marriage because I
right,
love divorce so much,
right,
and
yeah,
that's not the case. I absolutely believe in marriage, but I
right,
believe that marriage has a purpose, and I
right,
believe that the people going into it have certain goals,
right.
and sometimes they meet those goals, and then it's time to move on, and sometimes things change and they can't meet the goals, so they need to just reevaluate. And I don't think that there's any shame in that. I think as long as
I
people can approach it in a very healthy and respectful manner,
Right.
especially for any kids involved, because while a marriage can, legally be dissolved, there's still a family unit there.
Exactly.
And
And that's
that
the
I
thing.
think is the more important piece is, let's not get all worried about divorce and whether or not the marriage is ending. Let's talk about whether or not the family can continue to
Right.
function as a unit if, they live in separate places.
Sure.
So, so yeah, that's kind of where I come from
Hmm.
on the whole thing. And I come from a history of very good divorces. My parents divorced when I was a teenager. They had a wonderful divorce. I grew up
Yeah.
thinking divorce was a good thing. I
Hmm.
got divorced. I had a very good divorce. I thought divorce was a good thing,
Right.
and but then when I realized that most people don't see it that way,
Right. Um, Ceremony, a celebration of divorce. I think that's one of the things you write about
mhm.
is having a registry for divorces, and
I
or
I
you
absolutely
take it to
believe
that
that we should
extreme.
have registries
Okay. Yeah.
and divorce ceremonies. And there's a lot of kind of talk out there in the blogosphere and the Twitterverse and everything about divorce parties.
Yeah.
And you can buy a coffin for your wedding ring,
Okay.
which is all really really fun.
Yeah.
But I don't want to confuse, my idea of having a divorce ceremony is kind of like a
Hmm.
combination of a wedding and a funeral where people come together and they honor what they had, but they
Right.
also lay that chapter to rest and then
Right.
move on from
Well.
there. People have parties where, they throw darts at pictures of their ex. And
Okay.
I like to say
Yeah.
that hating isn't healing. So,
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And I think you're right. And that actually is when we talk about the mourning process. Well, this is now you're actually, there's a reason, I guess, that we've evolved to have funerals, and that's part of the healing and mourning process. And here's a situation that, again, necessitates mourning and healing, but there is no, so maybe you're onto something there. That,
well, divorce it's pretty much like the one big thing
mhm.
that we don't have a ritual for in our culture. We
Yeah,
have rituals built on everything from birth all the way to death. We have
right.
graduation parties and
Yeah,
retirement parties, and we don't have anything for divorce. And so I think that's part of what leaves people in this, very alone kind of vacuum space where they
right,
just feel really shameful. And what else are you going to do besides call a lawyer and go to war and
right.
get everything because you win?
Sure.
So,
I think that certainly in an amicable one, the problem is it's not. I don't even know. I would guess more often than not, it's very much not that, and you can't come together.
right now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I try to picture my ex and myself doing that, and I don't think that would have worked, even though it was fairly amicable. I mean, we
Hmm.
didn't have again, and also in a gray divorce where you take out child custody issues. I think that very much makes it easier,
Hmm.
and that's such a huge complication and issue with people. So that if you take that away and don't have that, you're already starting. It makes it so much easier to just get started at that point.
So I also wanted to ask you
Yeah.
about the child factor in the
Yeah.
gray divorce. Now, getting
Okay.
divorced with adult children,
Right.
how was that for you, and how is that for the people that you work with?
Well, for me, it was well. Our kids were one was away at college, and the other was a junior in high school at that point. Like I say, I thought we'd get him out of the house, but it was difficult. That may have been it. In fact, well, I don't want to get into the specifics of our situation, but when we did finally sit them down to tell them, that was hard. I mean, it was coming. We knew this was coming for quite a while to tell them, and because I was still living it, they didn't know. It wasn't as if, oh, dad moved out. We have something to tell you. This was, still with living, and then I continued to live in the house for another month while I looked for an apartment, and um, the kids were pretty fine with it. We made a big point of please ask us what's on your mind, what's bothering you, to the point where they find, at least with me, they said stop asking. We're and I never accept it when they say, oh, we're fine. I'm not going to just buy that, but they seem to have handled it pretty well. They're both doing great, and I couldn't be prouder of either of them. Um, it's the kid. I do talk to people who have lost contact with their kids. I don't know what made it. work for us that we both, and again, I don't know exactly my ex's relation with the kids, but I know that they do talk plenty. They're actually going after the graduation. Then both of my kids are going away with her and her new husband for a while. So they're on really good terms with both of us, as far as I know they are with me, and it certainly seems as well with her. But yeah, I do hear from people who are saying, I'm not talking to my kids anymore, or they blame me. We really, I know I worked very hard to not take any shots at my ex, and I'm pretty sure that she does the same with me. Just we might make a joke. I mean, my kids are pretty funny, and we might make a joke or two about their mom, and I'm sure she can do the same with them about me. So. But that is definitely a problem, and that's actually I had an article on my site about that too. That there might be a tendency in a gray divorce to figure, well, my kids are older, they're fine, and I think that's just as much a mistake as some of the other things. That's a mistake. You need to be aware that it's different. It isn't like a split with little kids and custody and being pulled different directions and sleeping at one house or sleeping in another house, but they still have issues too, and you need to be aware of that and stay in touch with them. And I think have an open door to let them talk to you about it. Be my best advice.
I think that with the older kids, then you kind of
Mhm.
get into a situation where, and I know that I know some people who their parents have divorced as adults, and it kind of causes them to look back and wonder, was my whole life a lie? You get into that. We're staying together until the kids are out. Okay, the kids are out now. We're done, and the
Right.
kids say, was this because of me? Were we really
Yeah.
family? A happy family in that picture. Kind of adds a different layer of complexity to it.
It certainly could. And I think in our case, again, even if she and I were not, if it wasn't as good as we'd hoped, as either one of us had hoped it would be, doesn't mean that we still, as a family, didn't do fun things and have a good situation.
Hmm.
And but yeah, no, I could see that. I don't think my kids ever did that. I don't know. Certainly, neither of them ever said anything to me like, "Gee, was this all just a sham?" I think they, yeah, it's a very interesting point. But in our case, it didn't happen.
Hmm.
Um, and I would think that the advice to those parents when the kids is like, no, this is we cared for each other to begin with. It didn't continue. We began to go different directions, but we still were tied together. We still had this wonderful family situation and wanted to continue that as long as we could. But now for our purposes, we now need to move on. And we're going to continue to be a family, or we'll continue to all be together for the important things that will continue to come on.
And that's probably a benefit of
Mm,
divorcing when the kids are older because they can
yeah,
understand that.
I think
Whereas
so.
with smaller kids, you have the cognitive maturity levels that are
Right.
different.
Sure.
But older kids, and especially being able to have an open discussion with them and be able
Yes.
to really,
Yeah.
encourage them to come and talk to you,
Right.
I'm sure
Yeah.
that helps a lot.
I think
And
so.
through all stages of the process, then, in the beginning and then even later on after the fact, they
Yeah.
would be a little bit better adapted and be able to kind of talk to mom and dad about any kind of
Yeah.
issues. So you said that your wife is remarried now. Your ex-wife is remarried at this point.
Yes, she is.
And when my mom got remarried a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So my dad came to the wedding.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That would not be, yeah. That's again
um, and
very
it
amicable,
was
but yeah.
not for you, huh? No. But that was one of the things that, like I was saying, as an adult, the family continues to change.
Yeah.
And having the relationship that I've always had with my parents and being able to talk to them and feeling that the divorce was something that benefited all of us. That remarriage, even so many years later, it was like 20
Mhm.
years after they got divorced.
Oh,
But that was still, it was another kind of hiccup in my family. And it was something that I was so glad that that I could talk to my dad about. It
right.
wasn't a problem for me, but it was just a change. And my dad was still there for me through that change. So,
Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah, I never actually, it's interesting. I've never talked to my kids about their mom's new husband or their we they don't tell me anything. They don't ask me anything. I don't ask them, and I would assume it's the same.
Hmm.
Um, I uh, I'm seeing a woman now. I don't imagine that they talk to my ex about that at all. And I would assume she doesn't. I don't know.
Hmm.
She might ask him, "Hey, is Dad seeing anybody?" But I don't. I don't know. I don't know. And if so, they might just say the bare minimum. But I don't think they'd ever get into anything about it.
Hmm. Yeah. So how long have you had the website out?
Well, I bought the URL a couple years ago, and I was working as a financial advisor in the life insurance world, and it things were not going well, and the office I was working at closed down just about a year ago, and I sort of took that as a sign that okay, I wasn't enjoying that work. It wasn't going particularly well. Maybe it's just time to try something else. I'd had a creative background before, then did the financial stuff, and it's like maybe I can get back to something that's a little more creative and make a go of this. So so it started. Yeah, I guess it's closing in on. I probably started getting it together in June or July of last year. So we're heading into a year.
Okay.
Um,
There's some
uh,
comprehensive resources out there, and I love your die curious. I think
okay,
that's
thank you.
so funny.
Well, I do think that's an area that I want to continue working in. I have a piece in Huffington Post right now about gray divorce, and I did a survey on my site asking people for the best. Very simple. What's the best thing about your divorce over 50? What's the worst thing about it? And so I compiled that into an article, which got posted at Huffington, and then I had a link to the survey there, and I've now had many more people have taken the survey. So I guess I'll have a follow up maybe for now with more answers. Although it's basically the same thing. The worst thing about it being the insecurity, the fear of the future. The best thing being freedom. That people are just that was overwhelmingly the best thing. But yes, and it continues. That I think the first three or four answers were just one word: freedom, 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 freedom. I was like, okay, I'm getting it. That's good. But
That's fantastic.
yeah, so I want to do, but like I say, I'm going to work more in that area because I do think that particularly the internet gives you the ability to reach an audience that couldn't. They're not going to go buy a book in a bookstore. They're not going to come to a seminar, but the internet lets them do both of those things in a way that they can maintain their privacy.
Absolutely. They can do it
Mhm.
at 2 o'clock in the morning
Right, exactly.
when they can't sleep.
Right, exactly, exactly.
So what made you decide to put the site out there? You said that you had bought the URL. Was there an event in particular that kind of sparked you, or?
No, really, just the fact of the other door sort of closed, the insurance door closing, and I just didn't. Like I say, that hadn't been a great situation and a great experience. I kept my license. I mean, I can still do that work, but it just wasn't really resonating with me, and it wasn't going that well.
Hmm.
So I thought, look, I want to make a living from this. That's been slow. I've added a coaching practice to it. That's I've come to understand that's the way I know you. I'd love to hear about what you do in that regard. Um, but so I'm real that's I do have I've built up a mailing list now. I've learned those techniques. I'm sure it's the same thing you're doing with the lead pages, or you offer something in exchange
Hmm.
for email, and so I built that up, and so I've made the bulk of the progress I've made has been in the last 3 or 4 months
Hmm.
with it. So the first 6 months was kind of flailing around trying to figure something out or just load up material. And then I realized, of course, you're writing in a vacuum. Nobody's coming to your site. You really have to work on getting it out there.
Hmm.
So thanks for your your help with that today.
Absolutely. No, thanks.
Uh, yeah,
When you featured my article on your
yeah.
site, that was I think I might have heard about your site before, but that was the first time that I really kind of started to dig
Oh,
in.
good.
I had gotten a lot of traffic from you
Oh, good, good.
actually.
Well, that's that. I
So
always.
yeah, I started to really look into it, and you know, having it's been about 10 years now that I've been really immersing myself in this world of divorce.
Okay.
And gray divorce has just been, for the past few years, it's
Yeah.
just one of those things. It's out there. It seems to be what everybody's doing. And
Right.
I got divorced in my 20s.
Oh,
So it's so not my area of expertise, but it's something
right.
that I, really wanted to learn something more about. I thought, oh, okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's as you probably see the same. I think one of the very first posts I did were articles from the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the New York Times, all writing about gray divorce. It's like, okay, it's out there. These are major publications that are writing about it, and they all cite the same research. There's a paper and a book that they cite, and it's getting a little dated. It's not the most recent thing, but I think just we just see this all the time. I run into a guy at the market the other day, and who I've known for many years, and he's shopping like I'm going to the market at 9 at night. I'm by myself, and I see him, and I go, "Oh, did Lisa send you to the market?" And he goes, "No more Lisa." I go, "What?" And somebody I don't. Again, I was I was surprised that I hadn't heard, but it was exactly the same sort of thing. That like, yeah, she wasn't happy, I wasn't happy, and so he'd already moved out, bought a new place, had a new girlfriend. I mean, all these things had happened without me even knowing about it. But it seems like we're surrounded by it. It's
mhm.
it's it's out there.
It certainly is. And one of the things that, one of the statistics that I've seen is that, the sexually transmitted disease
Yeah.
infection rate is actually higher among the older
Yes.
generations because of this. So
Yes.
we don't have to talk about sex, but can you talk
Uh,
a little bit about dating in the over 50 market?
sure.
What does that look like? How's that going for everyone?
Well, I've written about this as well. I had a brief stint of doing online dating. I think that's been such a change for people my age. If the last time they dated was 30 years ago, that now online dating just makes it so much easier. And I think it works for both genders. That particularly, I mean, think of 30 years ago, a woman may have, certainly high school age, you're thinking you have to wait till the guy asks you out. If you were to ask somebody, that would be seen as wrong and all. But now it's all equal.
Mhm.
It's you have just as much opportunity to ask people out. I think so. I've been big on the idea that there's a world out there again for that die-curious audience. If you're wondering about meeting people, you are going to have this opportunity through online dating that you just couldn't. Nobody could have imagined this back perhaps the last time you dated, and to be able to. Okay, I've also written that. Full profile sites like Match and eHarmony, you think, well, it's very deep, and people write their profiles and they write about what they want. Some of these places even do like psychological profiles to match you up. It still comes down to the pictures. I mean, it's just a fact. That's how we work. You're not going to even read the profile of somebody if you don't think the picture is at least interesting. And so start with that, and you do the best you can with your pictures. And of course, you don't have to be a movie star. Obviously, people are all getting connected and meeting people without being. You don't have to be the best looking person ever, but it's a reflection of you, and that's how people will first be attracted to you, what they see. Um, so it just gives you all this opportunity to look at people, to see them, to communicate with them. I'm big on the idea that you should have a phone conversation first, and that you can do. It just gives you a really nice opportunity to meet people, and it may work out for dating. You may make a new friend. You might just have an interesting. I mean, there were plenty of people I went out with one time, and you just knew you said goodbye, knowing I wasn't calling her and she wasn't calling me, and that was fine. But I met somebody interesting and heard about her. Well, in my case, her life, and that helps you. That helps you grow up. That helps you get a different perspective on the world, and probably it makes you a more interesting person. And maybe that'll help you in the next time you're interested in somebody. Maybe something you picked up in that will help you sort of spark with them. So that's my take on it.
So what about the pressure
Hmm.
to find somebody else to date. Now, when you're in your 20s and you're looking for a mate for the rest of your
Hmm.
life, there's a lot of pressure to date
Yeah.
because you want to settle down and get married. Now, in the gray divorce, you've had all of this, you've done the marriage and family thing, and you're looking for,
Right.
like you
Right.
said, a lot of people are looking for freedom.
Yeah.
So, is dating something that's really kind of high on the ladder of priorities, or are you seeing that people are taking a much more casual approach to it?
I think it's more casual. I don't think there's a lot of pressure. And I big on my site also to say that it's if you don't want to date, that's great. That's fine. I hope that people will not feel the pressure to. It's something you do when you're ready to. Um, the I I think people probably make a mistake getting into it a little too fast. I'm from everything I've read, I can't claim it in personal experience, but that I think you do need a little bit of time to sort of get resettled, get better acquainted with yourself, and take advantage of this opportunity, this break. I mean, there isn't if you've been in a emotionally, sexually, etc., frustrating relationship, and it would seem like you might naturally I just want to be around somebody who will be nice to me and who I'll enjoy, but it might be better overall. I mean, it's not that there's anything wrong with a rebound kind of thing as if you go into it knowing that, but I think it's better to take some time, and that's big. I did my roadmap through a divorce over 50 is my giveaway on my site, and I talk about a survive, revive, and thrive being the three phases or three stages of a great divorce. And I think you do need a time to just sort of get through it, get everything taken care of, and then begin to get back into yourself, begin to get back to doing what you are. And then a big part of my thinking too is that you get back to being who you want to be. And maybe you need to get to that point before you start dating
Hmm.
and getting out there. And again, there's nothing wrong with not. You could be perfectly happy to just move on. Being that person you want to be may not include a partner, and that's fine too. It's got there's. I hope people won't feel pressured, but if they want to, it's there. That's all.
I think that's something that is probably, I would say, the older 50 crowd is probably a little bit better with that, whereas I see a lot of younger people who are getting divorced, going through this process, and there's so much anger and blame that they get caught up in, and
Oh,
they just say to themselves, well, it was a short marriage, I was too young,
right,
it was a bad choice. I'm just gonna pick a better one next time, and then I'm
right,
gonna get the knight in shining armor that's gonna fix all of my problems. And
yeah,
I would imagine that after being married for decades and being
right,
in a place in your life where you are just so much, feel much more confident in yourself,
right.
that kind of a pressure, that kind of blaming, and the kind of looking for rescue is less likely to happen, and you're going to approach it in a little bit more mature manner.
I think so too, and I think that's one of the advantages in this gray divorce world that you should know yourself better. You've been through, you know what worked and what didn't, what made you happy and what didn't, and it gives you a chance to, like I say, get back to being who you want to be, but also you know what you like and what you don't like, and what you don't want to do again. Um, and I think there is a probably just as much in the under 50 world too. This idea of remarrying your ex, that's something that people need to be careful of. That you find it's familiar, even if it didn't work out. You maybe are drawn to familiarity, and I feel like everybody knows somebody who remarried their ex, and you go, ooh, it reminds me very much of the guy you didn't want to stay married to. Why did you do that? But you're drawn to familiarity, and I hope for people will push through that and recognize that issue and try to and avoid it, because I think there's a lot of second divorces after in the gray divorce world too. There's plenty of remarriages in that world that go wrong, and you've had two divorces. So hopefully that can be avoided, maybe by a little more focus on yourself, and know a little more, know better what you want and don't want going forward.
Absolutely. One of the things that Just curious about your
Mhm.
opinion, and I don't know, you might have heard of it. In Japan, they're doing more of a living together apart scenario where people hit this age and instead of getting divorced, they
Hmm.
just live apart
Right.
and they kind of do their own thing and they're
Right.
still a couple in some way, but they
Yeah.
really have a lot of freedom to live their own lives and kind of have this chance to go and explore the things that they couldn't while they were tied together and raising children. What's your
Right.
thought on that?
I think there probably a lot of that goes on. I think one of the things I've learned in just in life is you just never know what goes on in somebody else's life. You can't know what happens in somebody else's household. And I think, I mean, I know certainly we have the institution of legal separation where people, and that's really for financial reasons that you there's a date declared where you're legally separated, and that means I can't be responsible for the debts that she and vice versa. But I haven't. I think there are plenty of couples that are living that live very separate lives, and it's probably not formalized like you say in this Japanese version of it. Do the people actually declare that? I mean, is it something that they tell everybody about, and it's there's like a real designation of that?
Yeah, and they have a word for it too, I think.
Right.
I've read a couple articles about it recently, but they're not, giving up their relationship entirely. They realize
Yeah.
that they still have some commonalities and they have a history with this person, but they
Right.
just want to do their own thing.
Okay. Interesting. I think we have a there's a phrase I know divorce lawyers use called that goes cheaper to keeper, and that's the and
Yes.
that's in the stereotype. I mean, and that's in a particular situation. Uh, so it might be that we stay married for financial reasons, but live our own lives.
Mhm.
So I am in no position to judge anybody else's situation. And if that works and people are happy with it, that's great. Uh,
It's another thing with being in this point in your life where
mhm.
you're comfortable with yourself and being able to say, this works for me and
Right, right.
to each his own kind of thing. I think that's another great thing, about the gray divorce is that you have that. Whereas, like I said, getting married, getting divorced younger, there's a lot more societal pressure and there's a
Sure.
lot less self-confidence going into it. So,
Right,
a lot more structure around what is a marriage supposed to be, what is a relationship supposed to look like, what are the
right.
rules supposed to be, and we're seeing a lot of those boundaries are kind of being tested. A lot of
Mhm.
those rules are being broken, and it's really interesting moving forward just to watch how it unfolds and see where we end up. So,
Right.
well, is there anything else that you wanted to tell me about yourself, your site, what kind of help you can offer people, or any kind of last minute tips and tricks?
Um, hmm. I probably need some time to prepare that. And I think you've done a very thorough, I mean, like as I say, as I mentioned, first time anybody's ever interviewed me about anything. So it's been fun and I appreciate that. Um, I think if anything, I would just say that my site, I hope, is a resource for people. The philosophy is that divorce is never ideal. I'm sorry, sorry to contradict or to go against kind of what you say, but it's in my view, it's not ideal. It's not the plan, but
Fair.
that you okay, but that you can come through it better off and find a better future. And that's how it's worked out for me. And I think that I would hope to be able to help other people get to that position as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
My
I'm so
pleasure.
glad that we had a chance to talk,
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
and I look forward to continuing to connect out there.
Okay, and I'll keep looking for stuff that I can send my readers to on your site as well. So,
Excellent. Thanks
okay,
so
great.
much.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
Bye
Okay,
bye.
bye.